Welcome to the CommVault channel. In this video, we will discuss CommVault file system, SubClient. Please like, share, comment or suggest. Subscribe for more videos, and you can follow us on Instagram. In this video, we will try discussing in detail most of the options of SubClient. Due to lengthy content to cover, we had to split this into two parts. This video covers the first part. In the CommVault browser, expand Client Computers. Select the client for which you wish to configure file system backup. Expand File System. Expand Default Backup Set. In the navigation pane, you see a default subclient. If any storage policy assigned to the subclient. Description if any added. Please note, the default backup set comes with a default subclient, and this subclient should be enough to automatically discover and back up all the data on the server. Right-click on the default subclient. We have discussed almost all the menu options in our other video. Select Properties. General tab. The name of the client computer. iData agent type, which is file system. The name of the backup set. Subclient name, which is default. You can change the name of the subclient, but please note, this is a default subclient. Subclient policy. You can select one from the list. A subclient policy is like a template, with pre-configured settings for a subclient. Once you select the policy, then all pre-configured settings will be automatically applied to the subclient, and override any manually added settings. Use VSS, which means, use Microsoft Volume Shadow Service. VSS is used to create snapshot of the server, or volume, or drive-by, quiesce it. In other words, pause the volume to achieve a consistent snapshot. This snapshot is like a point-in-time copy, and help back up the data from it. Ideally, if the Windows operating system fails to create a shadow copy, then a regular backup without VSS is run automatically to backup data. Please note, VSS does not work on file allocation table, in other words FAT or FAT32 volumes. Also note, if VSS is not enabled or used, then we cannot back up all open files. You can use VSS for all files. If VSS snap fails, then one of the below options should be the backup behavior. Fail the backup, because VSS is unable to create a snapshot. Continue and reset access time. It is recommended only if the file archiving with access time rules is being done. Ideally, after backup, the access time of the files is reset to the original time, before the backup started, on the live files and not the snapshot. Continue and do not reset access time. As shown in the note, archiving rules based on access time will be affected. Which means, this action may have an undesired effect on applications that utilize file access time. Ideally, data is backed up from the live volume, and the access time of a file does not reset until the backup completes. For locked files only. In this case VSS is used only to back up files that are still in use, or locked by any other application or system program. Description. You can add a note, comment, change ticket or incident number for later reference. Content tab. Contents of subclient. The default subclient content is /, in other words root, which means it backs up the entire server. You can edit, or modify, or delete the content to be backup. Subclient contents can be defined as drives, folders, files, or UNC paths. To modify the content, click Browse. Select the new content. Once you click Add, you receive the warning. The warning says, Auto detection capability will be disabled if you modify the content for the default subclient. Please note, if auto discovery is disabled, then any new volume added to the server will not be automatically backed up, leaving the possibility of data loss during recovery. It is always recommended to leave the default subclient content as it is, and create additional user-defined subclients to manage data and system state separately. Also note, if you change the content of the default subclient, the system state will not be backed up when a subsequent backup is performed. Add paths. If you know the data path, then you can directly add it to the content, instead of browse and add. Edit paths helps you to edit the contents of the subclient. If you wish to go back and enable the auto detection, then delete the contents and ensure the path is /. You can add UNC paths as content for a subclient. Please note, the UNC path must be in the same domain as the client computer. Once you add UNC path to content, you need to add a user, using who you will connect to UNC path, and perform backup. Click as user, and in the Impersonate User window, type in user credentials. Please note, the username should be domain / username. Backup system state. This option is by default enabled. If you disable this option, you cannot backup system state, which is mandatory for full system recovery. You have a choice to enable it on user-defined subclient, and then disable it here. Only with full backup. Ideally, system state backups run for all backups, giving flexibility for point-in-time recovery. But, if you want it to run only with full backup, enable this option. Please note, system state of a given server can be recovered to last full successful backup. It's worth to note this. Only backup files that qualify for archiving. This option is for archiving subclient. Filters tab. Read the note carefully. Include global filters. Filters can be set on the CommCell level, and can be used across any server configured in the CommServe. Global filters can be set from the control panel. From there, you can also enable or disable global filter to be used on all subclients. We have 3 choices to choose from the list. On means to enable global filters for the subclient. Off means to disable global filters. Use cell level policy. If in control panel, global filters, use global filter option on all subclients is enabled, then this option will enable global filters on this subclient. If in control panel the option is disabled, then the cell level policy option will disable global filters on this subclient. Exclude these files, folders, patterns. Whatever is added here will be excluded from backup for this subclient. Using that option, you can enter the path of a file, folder, pattern manually for exclusion. You can also use wildcards to define filters. For example, if you wish to filter all text files, then add wildcard *.txt. Another example, which is used by many customers, is to exclude SQL database files from file system backup. Then you can add wildcards like *.ldf, *.mdf, and *.ndf. You can browse for a file or folder, and exclude it from backup. Highlight a selection, and click Delete to remove the entry. Highlight a selection, and click Edit to modify an entry. Except for these files, folders, or patterns. Let's say you have a parent folder excluded from backup, but you wish to backup one particular subfile or subfolder. Then you add the entry here, so it can be included in the backup. As discussed above, use Add, Browse, Delete, and Edit options to create, modify, or delete an entry. It's worth to note this warning. Archiving rules. General tab. Enable archiving with these rules. Select this option to configure the rules for archiving. Once you configure this option, you cannot disable the file archiving option, which is available on the General tab of the Archive set. Use the following options to archive files that meet these criteria. File access time older than n days. Enter the age of file since it was last accessed. For example, if you entered a value of 60 days, then all files having access date older than 60 days, from the specified location and content tab will be archived. In Windows, the file or folder properties show the last access date of that file or folder. If you wish to ignore this rule, then enter 0. File modified time older than n days. Enter the age of file since it was last modified. For example, if you entered a value of 90 days, then all files having modified date older than 90 days, from the specified location and content tab will be archived. File created time older than n days. This is the file creation time that we need to enter for archiving calculation. File size greater than n KB. As it states, it is the size of the file. Enter the size of file to be archived. For example, if you entered a value of 1024 KB, then all files greater than 1024 KB will be archived. Maximum file size, NKB. Enter the size of file to be archived. All files which are less than the size mentioned will be archived. File type. You can archive files based on file extensions or file types as well. The file extensions shown here are included in the file type list. Use this option to archive only the read-only files. Select one of the options below for post-archiving. Replace the file with a stub. Which means, after archiving, the file will be replaced with a stub in the same location. Stub means shortcut. Delete the file. After successful archiving the file, delete the file from the source location. Please make a note of this point, as it's worth to note. Advanced tab. Delay stub pruning until archived data is protected in another copy. Enabling this option will perform a redundancy check, and ensure that multiple copies of the files are available in the storage. A file that meets the archiving rules is stubbed only if another copy of the file is available on a different storage. A stub can be recalled only if a copy of source file is available on the storage. However, if the storage is corrupted or misplaced, then the stub cannot be recalled. Prune stubs from the source storage, based on certain criteria. Remove stubs with file modification time older than X days. The stubs that were not accessed for last X number of years, X number of months, and X number of days specified, are pruned from the source storage. Remove stubs not accesses in previous N days. The stubs whose modified time is older than N number of years, N number of months, and N number of days specified, are pruned from the source storage. Remove stubs with stub creation time older than N days. The stubs that were created before N number of years, N number of months, and N number of days, are pruned from the source storage. Start archiving when disk is less than N% free. This is the low watermark value for the disk. If the free space on the disk is greater than the specified value, then the disk will not be scanned for archiving. If you wish to ignore this rule, enter a value of 100. Stop archiving when disk is up to N% free. This is the high watermark value for the disk. If the free space on the disk is less than the specified value, files will be archived until the free space on the disk is equal to the value specified. Please note that in case of a very large file, archiving will continue even beyond the specified high watermark value, until the entire file has been archived. If you wish to ignore this rule, enter a value of 100. Retention tab. Extended storage policy retention. Ideally, extended retention is specified on storage policy copies, but if it not set there, or if you need another retention, then you can use this option to set extended retention for the client. The mode of retention can be selected from the list. There are two types of retention modes: job-based retention or object-based retention. You cannot perform full or synthetic full backups if you select the job-based retention option. Retain jobs for n years, n months, and n days. This value will be compared with the storage policy retention. Whichever is larger is applied to the job. Retain jobs indefinitely. This is the default option. If you select this option, then jobs within the storage policy copy that has a longer retention time are retained indefinitely. Object-based retention. If you select this option, then you would be able to perform synthetic full and incremental backups. Minimum retention based on file modification time. Use this option to retain items based on the modification time of the file. The retention is applied to the items after X years, X months and X days specified here. Retain objects indefinitely. If selected, then the items in the latest backup cycle are retained forever. Deleted item retention. Determine when the storage policy retention must be applied to the deleted files. The storage policy copy retention is applied to the deleted items after X years, X months, and X days specified here. This time starts after an incremental backup is performed on the deleted items. You can restore the deleted items until the deleted items are available on the storage media. The deleted items are retained in the latest backup cycle forever, if retain objects indefinitely option selected. File versions. You can retain the older versions for a specific time, since the time when it was last modified, for X years, X months and X days. You can retain X versions of previous file versions, after synthetic full backup jobs. Retain versions based on the following rules. You can specify the number of daily, weekly, and/or monthly versions of files that should be included in a synthetic full backup. Retain daily versions of files for a specific number of weeks. Retain weekly versions of files for a specific number of months, and it is calculated after the number of weeks specified above have transpired. Retain monthly versions of files for a specific number of months, that is, after the number of months specified above have transpired. Please note, you are not required to enter values for all three categories. You can enter value 0 for the ones you don't need. For job-based retention, do make a note of this point. It's worth to pay attention to these recommendations. Storage Device tab. Data Storage Policy. Choose a desired storage policy from the list. You can change the policy at any time. Once changed, it is always recommended to take a full backup, instead continue with incremental or differential backup. Data paths. A primary storage policy copy has a default data path assigned, but if you wish that this SubClient backup to go via another data path, probably configured with another media agent in storage, then click Override Data Path. To override the data path, click the Use option. Once enabled, you will see the priority next to it. You can define an order if you wish. Click Refresh Priority to see the changes. If the storage policy has the incremental storage policy option enabled, then you would see the name of the incremental storage policy displayed here. You can also change the data paths. You can create a new storage policy from here. Data Transfer Option tab. Software Compression. A simple example to compare software compression, just to remember it easily, would be WinRAR, 7-zip, WinZip, etc. Please read this statement carefully. If you make wrong selection here, then it might explode your storage usage. Let's talk few examples. If you have a client computer, which is a media agent as well, with physical tape libraries directly connected to it, then do not use software compression, as local data is directly sent over SAN to physical tape library, and physical tape library has its own hardware compression to tape. Another example. If you are using data domain as backend storage, be it disk storage, or virtual tape library, do not use software compression, as data domain has inbuilt deduplication and compression mechanism, which gets tampered if you use compression. Also note, software compression needs additional resources on the server, like CPU, memory, etc. So, make your choice after careful analysis. Enable software compression on the client computer. We recommend this. Enable software compression to be performed on the media agent. Enable use storage policy settings. We will discuss in another video. Disable software compression. Please note, hardware compression has priority over the software compression. Deduplication. Enable deduplication. You can enable or disable deduplication for the subclient. You can choose to generate the signature, which is a component of deduplication, to be generated on the client, or on the media agent. Please note this point, it's important. Security tab. This window displays the names of the user, or user groups, that are associated with this CommCell object. Activity Control tab. Under Data Management, you can enable, or disable backup activity for the subclient. Enable after a delay allows you to predetermine the date and time, at which backup operations should begin automatically. Please make a note of this point. Policy Association tab. We can associate this subclient to a content indexing policy, by enabling content indexing. If content indexing policy already created, you can select one from the list. Click Advanced. We will end this video here. In our next video we will continue discussing subclient configuration. Stay tuned to our channel by subscribing to it, if not already done. Do subscribe for more videos. Thank you.